Once, in the heart of a destitute village, lived a young man named Rohan. At 20, he was already well acquainted with the heavy hand of poverty. Life there was an uphill struggle for everyone, but for Rohan, the weight seemed to grow more oppressive with every passing sun. His world was smaller, cramped, humble hut, and a stomach that often knew only the hollow ache of hunger. There were days when a single meal was a luxury. Other days, he simply surrendered to sleep to forget. He hadn't eaten at all. He spent his days picking up odd jobs, bartering his labor for coins that never quite added up to a future. He had been forced to abandon his education years prior. Books and tuition fees were fantasies in a world where bread was a miracle. Yet, beneath the exhaustion, a fire smoldered. Rohan refused to believe that his story was destined to end in the dust of the village square. He craved a life where tomorrow wasn't a threat, but a promise. He wanted to prove that a man's worth was forged by his choices, not his circumstances. But with no capital, no specialized trade, and no clear path forward, he had only two things: an ironclad determination and a mind that refused to stay still. Every evening, when the day's labor was done, Rohan sought sanctuary with Baba Guru, a venerable sage who lived in a simple hut beneath the sprawling canopy of an ancient banyan tree. One evening, Rohan sighed, his voice thick with frustration. "Baba, I work until my bones ache, yet my life remains unchanged. Why do some soar while others remain tethered to the ground?" Baba Guru remained silent for a long moment, his gaze steady. "Rohan," he began softly, "most people spend their lives waiting. They wait for luck to find them or for the world to grow kind. But those who truly succeed do not wait. They manufacture their own opportunities." He leaned forward, the shadows of the banyan tree dancing across his face. "Real power is hidden in the dawn. When the village sleeps, the world belongs to the silent. That silence is your greatest asset. Wake at 5. Use those hours to sharpen your body and fortify your mind. Plan your path when there is no noise to distract you and no excuses to stop you. Win the morning and you win the day. Win enough days and you transform your life." Those words took root in Rohan's heart. That night, sleep eluded him. When 5 a.m. arrived, the world was a shroud of cold, ink-black silence. Rohan's body, heavy with fatigue, protested, but the memory of the old man's voice pulled him upright. He stepped outside. The air was crisp, the stars still shimmering like distant diamonds. He began to walk, then to march, tracing the empty village paths. At first his muscles burned, but as the blood began to pump, a new sensation took hold, a sense of command. For the first time, he wasn't reacting to the day. He was leading it. He returned to his hut while the rest of the village was still lost in dreams. By the flicker of a small oil lamp, he unearthed an old-school notebook. He read until the ink faded into the dim light, practiced sums, and sharpened his vocabulary. In that stillness, his mind was a sponge. From that day forward, Rohan made a private covenant. Neither the biting cold of winter nor the torrential rains of the monsoon would keep him in bed. He transformed the village commons into his gymnasium push-ups. Squats and brisk runs strengthened his frame until his breathing grew steady and his limbs turned to corded muscle. After his physical labor, he turned to his intellectual pursuits. He scavenged for knowledge everywhere torn newspapers, old notes, even the lettering on market crates. Noticing this transformation, Baba Guru began to mentor him in earnest. In the violet light of early morning, they trekked into the forest. "Observe," Baba would say, pointing to a nondescript vine. "This leaf breaks a fever. This root settles the stomach. These blooms are prized by the apothecaries." Rohan memorized it all. Soon, he was venturing into the woods alone at dawn, harvesting the finest specimens, washing them in mountain streams, and bundling them with precision. At the weekly market, his earnings started smaller, mere handful of rupees, but he never grumbled. He saved every paisa. Slowly, the extra appeared. A bit more oil, a fresh pencil, a better meal. The village began to whisper. Rohan no longer loitered under the trees or joined the chorus of complaints. His gait was purposeful, his eyes focused on a horizon only he could see. Rohan has changed, they said. And he had. He had found his purpose. Then came the drought. For a year, the sky turned to brass. The earth cracked, the crops withered, and work vanished. Despair settled over the village like a thick dust. Rohan felt the sting of it too, but he refused to let the darkness breach his morning ritual. In the 5 a.m. silence, he told himself, "This is the crucible. This is where, though many falter and the few endure." Finally, a sliver of hope appeared. A representative from a nearby town arrived, announcing a training program for rural youth, chance to learn modern irrigation and mechanical repair. It was a golden ticket, but admission required passing a rigorous entrance exam. Rohan threw himself into his studies with renewed vigor. He borrowed books, consulted Baba Guru on complex problems, and timed his practice sessions to master his nerves. On the day of the test, he sat down, took a breath of the morning air he had grown to love, and let his discipline guide his hand. He didn't just pass. He excelled. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. In the town, Rohan was a shadow to his instructors, absorbing every detail of pump mechanics and tool fabrication. He learned to breathe life back into rusted scrap. When he returned to the village, he was no longer a laborer. He was a craftsman. He started small, repairing plows and sickles with a speed and honesty that won him instant acclaim. As his savings grew, so did his ambition. He designed a low-cost irrigation device, a clever assembly of bicycle parts and old pipes that could lift water without the need for expensive electricity. It was a revolution for the small-scale farmers. Orders poured in. Rohan built a workshop and hired 2 local boys, teaching them not just the trade, but the 5 a.m. rule. He watched them grow as he had disciplined, strong and hopeful. Years passed. The boy who once went to bed hungry now owned a thriving business and a sturdy home with a solid roof. But more importantly, he became a pillar of the community, lifting others out of the same shadows he once inhabited. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Rohan sat once more with Baba Guru under the banyan tree. "Thank you, Baba," Rohan whispered. "Your words gave me a new life." The old man smiled, the wisdom of ages in his eyes. "No, Rohan, your actions carved that life. Always remember, success isn't something you wait for. It is something you build in the quiet hours, while the rest of the world is dreaming. Win the morning, and you win your life." A note to you: this story isn't just about Rohan. It's a mirror held up to your own potential. Whatever obstacles stand in your path, be it a lack of resources or the weight of exhaustion. The power to pivot begins at dawn. Tomorrow at 5 a.m., the world will be silent. That silence belongs to you. Wake up, move, learn that your success story is waiting to be written in those first few hours of light.